Your sales fell less than expected, so you beat the street on that. A lot of this was driven by sales in North America. We saw a lot of people starting to stockpile. Do you think that you and other consumer goods companies are past the worst of the impact of the pandemic?
Good morning, Annmarie. Thanks. Yeah, I think what we've seen in the last quarter is the true strength of Unilever. Our breadth of our portfolio gives us good resilience. We've shown agility on how to respond to these unprecedented circumstances. And meanwhile, we've been working on the strategic future of the company. We're long past the stockpiling phase now in North America. And what we're seeing is big shifts from category to category. So things like hand hygiene, surface hygiene, growing very quickly. And I think a lot of our growth in North America has been driven by our in-home foods business as people eat meals at home rather than on the go. And that's likely to continue for quite some time. On the other hand, our business that supplies restaurants, of course, is struggling in the current circumstances.
I think a lot of people were surprised in how well ice cream like Ben and Jerry's did in North America, given the fact that a lot of tourist concessions had to be shut down. Do you think ice cream and other sort of businesses that you supply to restaurants, are they going to recover in the second half as more cities begin to reopen?
You know, there's a number of consumer behavior changes that we're seeing through this pandemic. People cocooning at home as a safe space, people worrying about value. But one of the things we're observing is e-everything. So we're all shopping online, we're paying online, we're browsing online, we're consuming media online. And can you believe it? Our ice cream team have managed to pivot from selling out of home on-the-go ice cream to take advantage of the boom in home deliveries. And so a lot of the growth that we've seen in ice cream is people enjoying ice cream at the end of a meal as part of a home delivery service. That's a trend that we expect to continue. And I also want to make the point that as we sit in Western Europe and our bubbles in North America, we must not lose sight of the fact that this disease is still ravaging through the global south. It's at full steam in Latin America, it's getting a grip in Africa, it's having a devastating impact in some parts of South Asia. So I think we just need to be conscious that people are suffering around the world.
Yeah, of course. That's a very good point, and a lot of humility you need to bring when you're discussing the impact on the changes of behavior. When you look at those changes of behavior, is there anything you could really harness to maybe create new brands for more stay-at-home meals? Is there anything you think this pandemic means you're going to either look at other brands you can potentially acquire? How does this change your portfolio going forward?
You know, one of the things that we've seen, Annmarie, is big brands, traditional brands are doing very well indeed in the current circumstances. Now's a time when people are feeling insecure, and the trust that they have in big, well-known brands is of even greater importance. And so we're seeing demonstrating a lot of strength. Our billion-euro brands are growing the fastest. We will, of course, be continuing to look for opportunities to acquire. In fact, in this quarter, we completed the largest acquisition Unilever's done for quite some time, acquiring into healthy nutrition with the Horlicks and Boost brands that are mostly in South Asia. So we will continue to engage in the acquisition process, but at the moment, the real news is the strength of the well-trusted, big, familiar brands.
You also talked about your tea business in the latest report. You're actually keeping some of the tea empire in-house, but spinning off some others. And what other M&A do you think is potential this year? Or is the industry, is it even maybe too far-fetched to think the industry can really do more M&A in this kind of crisis environment?
I would say our position in M&A hasn't changed over the last 6 months. We're very disciplined on looking at strategy, price, and timing. And if good opportunities emerge, then we are certainly in a strong position with our very healthy balance sheet to take advantage of that. The other thing that we've been working on is in the last quarter, we've announced our intention to unify the company, simplify the legal structure of Unilever, And further down the road, that could give us opportunities to look at more transformational acquisition, though I want to stress there's nothing of that nature on the immediate radar.
What about changes in personnel? Has the crisis made you rethink how you can maybe be more efficient? We've seen this happen from another number of consumer brands.
You know, we have managed to protect all jobs in Unilever over the second quarter. But we've seen huge shifts in how people work. Our first priority has been to make sure that our frontline workers in field sales, and particularly in our factories, are working in safe conditions. For many of our factory workers around the world, the Unilever factory they work is the safest, most hygienic place that they spend any part of their day. And of course, we have 50,000 office-based workers who have more or less worked completely from home. And we see a big shift in the future of work where I don't expect anybody to go back to full-time 100% office working. I think a hybrid model is emerging where technology for collaboration is now so good that we'll all work 2-3 days a week at home and a couple of days in the office. Offices will become a place for collaboration, building community, emphasizing the culture of the company, creativity. But our everyday jobs, we've discovered all the office-based jobs can be done just as well from home. And we have seen people working extraordinarily hard. In fact, if I can apologize for abusing your hospitality, I do want to give a shout out to the women and men of Unilever for the heroic efforts they put in over the last few months.
When do you think you'll be heading back to the HQ in London?
Yeah, I'm in no hurry. I've never felt more connected to my immediate team. We've gone from monthly exec meetings to daily exec meetings. We have every week a global town hall with 10 to 15,000 people dialing in to have a chat about what's going on in the immediate moment. And so I'm in absolutely no hurry. I think we'll start to open up our offices a bit more through the third quarter, but it's very uncertain right now. I think anyone who locks in on a firm view of what trajectory the disease or the economy is going to take is making a mistake. So we're really prizing agility over locking in on one position.
Yeah, about that uncertainty. Are you worried about a second wave? And supermarkets were quite resilient with the stockpiling. Are you expecting stockpiling to happen again in the face of a second wave?
Yes and no. So no, I don't expect there'll be a huge amount of stockpiling, because what we've seen is the global supply chains that consumer products companies run are very resilient. Our interconnected global supply chain has given us multiple points of backup. And it's an interesting point. This notion of a retreat to national security of your supply chain would be a huge mistake for our type of industry. It's the global connected nature that has given us the resilience. And I think people have seen that there's generally not been shortages. And I am worried about a second wave. We're seeing second waves in lots of places, fortunately constrained typically to regions or cities within a country. Look at Australia, it was almost through the pandemic, and then Victoria and Melbourne in particular got hit. And I think it's important that governments do take action on these second waves and reintroduce lockdowns where necessary. And I'm glad that we're seeing that.
I want to ask you a few questions about diversity and inclusion. Individuals, corporations are really starting to look internally and ask questions about how to make a more equal, representative work environment. Ben & Jerry's has gotten a lot of really good press recently, and a lot of that has to stem from the fact that when they were talking about racial injustice in America and around the world, it comes from years of advocacy of really important social issues. How are you ensuring similar measures across some of your other brands?
You know, this starts at the top of the organization. We have 10 non-executive directors of Unilever, 5 men, 5 women. We have a prominent African leader on our board. He's a loud voice for this subject. We have 3 ethnically Asian women on our board. Over the last 10 years, Unilever's gone from 38% of our 14,000 managers being women to 51% of our managers being women. So we're, because of our extreme international nature of our business, we're naturally quite a diverse company. However, I think we feel that we're still in the early stages of learning about racial inequality and what we can do as a business to help in our own operations and in society. And we're delighted that we've got Ben and Jerry's in the portfolio. That we learn from them every day, and they're always on the leading edge of these type of issues. I remember last time I was in Vermont visiting last year, they were really championing the cause of racial injustice in the criminal justice system, whereby the legalization of marijuana was creating a lot of wealth for typically a few rich white dudes, while a lot of black people were still locked up in jail for things that were no longer a crime. And I was very struck by that. And so we love Ben and Jerry's, everything they do, and we're in learning mode on this particular issue.
You've been criticized recently about continuing to market the skin whitening creams. And I know Unilever said they're going to change the name Fair and Lovely to Glow and Lovely and include more women of all skin tones. But given this global dialogue we're seeing, do you think at some point it's time to just abandon that brand?
You know, let me be clear. We do not sell any kind of skin bleaching products. The products we sell give general skin health that provides a glow. And from now on, actually for several years now, you will see no reference to whitening, lightening in our brand communication, nor on pack, nor in the brand name. And so we've taken the step now of eliminating that type of language from brand names. And we're going to use the opportunity to demonstrate the beauty of skin types of all tones going forward. So I think it would be a huge mistake for us to surrender the space, which would then probably be taken up by very harmful products that are on the market, products that contain mercury, bleaches, hydroquinone. They're dreadful products, and we're proud to market safe and effective general skin health products that do give the skin that glow. And I think it's high time we walk away from any kind of language that suggests that white or light is better.
You've also spoken about woke washing in the past. I know you probably have a lot of plans on how to create a more inclusive environment in the future. What can you point to right now that Unilever is doing?
You know that we've spoken in the past about how passionately we believe in this. And what we're seeing is that in this pandemic, our most purposeful brands that are taking action on opportunities for women or environmental matters or dealing with injustices, those brands are growing even faster. And I think the world is waking up. We have very clear evidence that in particular young people have a lot of optimism that the youth of today will drive these changes. And I think young people feel that the grown-ups didn't take action on the warnings around pandemics. The grown-ups didn't take action on climate change, and the grown-ups aren't taking enough action on racial and other injustices. And young people have had enough. And we find that our brands that take action on these platforms grow in relevance and become even stronger parts of our portfolio.
And I just have one final question. Do you have a pipeline of ethnic minorities and women in the CEO spot? So I know you're not going anywhere anytime soon, but every company needs to think of, you know, who's going to be my successor. Could you see a woman or a black man or a black woman fill your shoes one day?
Yes. Well, first of all, the board will decide where and when I move on. It would be a dream of mine to have a woman or someone from a minority background to be my successor. We're doing very well on our intake. Our intake into Unilever very much reflects the societies that we do business in. We've still got work to do at the top of the organization. And I can assure you, having balance and representation in the senior ranks of Unilever is literally one of the top 3 priorities of the business.